Let's see. Okay, I don't know if this thing was on and recording or not. I really have no idea what it's doing. But I'm going to continue to read regardless. Because that's what I do now. I do a live reading. And the one I'm doing now is Game Change. And there will be another reading after this one tonight. I'm not going to spend but so much time on trying to get it to work. I need to buy something for it to stand in. Who feels like doing all that? Okay, that's as good as any right there. There it is. Alright, if it falls again, I'm going to just toss it or something. Alright, so where was I? I mean, this is getting good. I don't have time for that. Oh, he'd throw punches when it was necessary. He would never shy away from a vigorous fight. But if he had to become just another hack, gouging out eyes and wallowing in the mud to do this thing, then it wasn't worth doing. If he got in, he told Michelle and his brain trust, he would be in with both feet for sure. But I'm also going to emerge intact, he said. I'm going to be Barack Obama and not some parody. It was an extraordinary statement, the kind that few standard issue polls would think to make when planning a long-shot adventure with their advisors. What gave him such an assured posture was his experience of the past 2 years, an experience that was without precedent in modern American politics. In his brief time on the national scene, Obama had compiled a staggering succession of big stage triumphs that took the breath away. The convention speech, the Africa trip, the book tour, appearances on Oprah and on the covers of Time and Newsweek. The reception he'd received from the media had been uniformly glowing, and that fed Obama's sense that he could somehow transcend the horror show. Maybe that was insanely naive. Maybe it was incandescently mature. But at that moment, he had no reason to believe that it was anything but perfectly sound. Obama flew to Orange County, California on December 1st to take part in the event at the Saddleback megachurch run by Rick Warren, the best-selling author of The Purpose-Driven Life. It was World AIDS Day, and Warren had invited Obama to appear alongside Republican Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas. Brownback, speaking first, remarked to Obama, "Welcome to my house," prompting peals from the crowd. When Obama's turn came, he remarked, "There is one thing I've got to say, Sam, though. This is my house, too. This is God's house." He quoted Corinthians and advocated the use of condoms to prevent the spread of HIV. At the end, the huge crowd of conservative evangelicals awarded him a standing ovation. Saddleback was the start of a feverish 2-week sprint before Obama would fly off on his family's annual holiday in Hawaii, where he planned to make his final decision about running. On December 4th, he traveled to New York for a meeting in the offices of billionaire financier George Soros with a dozen of New York's heaviest Democratic fundraisers. From there, he proceeded to Washington and sought the counsel of a pair of the Capitol's proverbial wise men, one a Republican and one a Democrat, one a stranger and one a friend. The Republican was General Colin Powell, who met with Obama at his office in Alexandria, Virginia. Obama wanted to know about Powell's flirtation with running for the presidency in 1995. Why had he decided against it? "It was pretty easy," Powell said. "I'm not a politician." For the next hour, Obama quizzed Powell about foreign policy and also about race. Did the general think the country was ready for an African-American president? "I think it might have been ready when I was thinking about running," Powell told Obama. "It's definitely more ready now." Powell had his own set of questions for Obama, but the main one was, why now? "You don't have much of an experience base," Powell pointed out. "You're new to the Senate. You have an interesting but limited resume from before that. So again, why now?" "I think I might have what the country needs today, not 4 or 8 years down the line," Obama responded. "I think it might be my time." The second wise man was Daschle, Like Bill Daley, Daschle knew the Clintons well and wasn't afraid of them. Didn't much like them either. He considered Hillary an icy prima donna, her husband who, after exiting the White House, often called Daschle, imploring him for him in burnishing his legacy. A narcissist on an epic scale, the dynamic between the couple bizarre, their treatment of their friends unforgivably manipulative and disloyal. For Daschle, Clinton fatigue wasn't simply a political analysis. It was personal. He was bone weary of the duo and thought that Obama could and should take them on. Daschle met Obama at one of his favorite restaurants, an Italian place downtown near his Washington office. The owner set up a table for them in the kitchen so their privacy would be preserved. For 3 hours, they sat drinking red wine and talking, Obama asking question after question about money, about the microscope he'd be under if he ran, about how great a liability his threadbare CV might be. Daschle reflected on his own contemplation of a White House bid in 2004. He decided against it, certain he'd have another chance to run. But now, having lost his Senate seat, that option seemed foreclosed. Don't assume that you'll get a second window, Daschle told Obama, and don't minimize the salience of being un-Washington or ignore the fact that if you wait, the next time around, you won't be un-Washington anymore. At the end of the meal, the two men embraced and then Daschle headed home. His wife Linda asked if Tom was planning to endorse Obama if he ran. Daschle said, "What the hell? Yeah, I am." That weekend, Obama went on to New Hampshire, his feet making contact with granite state soil for the first time in his life, an incredible fact for a man on the verge of entering a presidential race. The crowds that met him in Portsmouth and Manchester were, as usual, large and loud and lusty, listening eagerly as he invoked Martin Luther King Jr. and his longtime pastor in Chicago, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. But more remarkable was the 150-strong flock of reporters, including many national big feet and thumbsuckers credentialed for the festivities. Obama returned to Chicago from New Hampshire, but he wasn't quite finished with his hyperdrive round of buzz building. He'd begun his sprint in Saddleback with an act of outreach to one religious constituency, and now he ended with a play for another, the nation's pro-football fanatics, who were greeted with the sight of Obama at the start of the December 11th ABC broadcast of Monday Night Football. Besuited, looking solemn, seated behind a desk, an American flag to his left, Obama began, "Good evening. I'm Senator Barack Obama. I'm here tonight to answer some questions about a very important contest that's been weighing on the minds of the American people. This is a contest about the future, a contest between two very different philosophies, a contest that will ultimately be decided in America's heartland. Tonight, I'd like to put all the doubts to rest. I'd like to announce to my hometown of Chicago and all of America that I'm ready." With that, Obama placed a Chicago Bears hat on his head and continued, "For the Bears to go all the way, baby." Then, with a wide, mild grin across his face, punctuating a performance of unchecked charisma, he chanted the descending opening bars, da-da-da-da, of the Monday Night Football theme. I forgot that theme. Da-da-da-da-da-da, something like that, I guess, or whatever. Okay. All right, that was funny. To many, especially those in the Clinton camp, Obama's early December itinerary was proof positive that he was running. But for all the outward signs to the contrary, Obama was still undecided. In Washington, he'd met with a group of his old friends from Harvard. They chewed over the prospect for a while, weighing the various points and possibilities. Eventually, someone observed, "We've been in this room for 2 hours talking about why you should run, and no one has mentioned that you're black." While it was true that Obama had rarely considered or let himself consider his skin pigmentation as a possible impediment to his running or winning, race was never really absent from his thinking. Now, spontaneously and quite unexpectedly, he found himself speaking passionately about what it would mean to women in black churches who had worked so long and so hard to see their kids grow up safe and have big dreams in inner city communities. He returned to that motif on December 13th when he and his advisors gathered again in Axelrod's conference room for a final meeting before the Obamas took off for Hawaii. "What exactly do you think you can accomplish by getting the presidency?" Michelle asked him pointedly. "Well," Obama said, "there are a lot of things I think I can accomplish, but two things I know. The first is when I raise my hand and take that oath of office, there are millions of kids around this country who don't believe that it would ever be possible for them to be president of the United States. And for them, the world would change on that day. And the second thing is, I think the world would look at us differently the day I got elected, because it would be a reaffirmation of what America is, about the constant perfecting of who we are. I think I can help repair the damage that's been done." Like Obama, his nascent campaign brain trust rarely brought up the subject of race during the deliberations over whether he should run. In part, that was because of a combination of discomfort, confidence, and hope. Discomfort in that almost all of them were white and felt presumptuous addressing the issue. Confidence in Axelrod, who had a well-earned reputation for steering black candidates across the country to victory with significant white support, and hope for the post-racial appeal that Obama already exhibited would prove to be durable, even transcendent. Yet the near silence on the topic also owed something to Obama's combination of optimism and fatalism about it. Either the country was ready now for an African-American president, he said, or it wouldn't be in his lifetime. Obama's answers had entered the room still dubious. Let me start again. Big mistake. Obama's advisors had entered the room still dubious that he would run, but now it was clear that the probabilities had shifted. For one thing, Michelle's opposition had eased. That much was obvious. At one point, Barack went outside to have a smoke. Someone brought up again the issue of his personal safety. "Well, I've already gone out and increased our life insurance on him," Michelle said drolly with a sly smile. "You just can't be too careful." In Hawaii, Barack and Michelle took long walks on Waikiki Beach, hammering out the final items on her questionnaire. He gave in on everything. One night close to New Year's Eve, he called Jarrett, told her that his decision in effect was made. "That is pretty much done," he said. But it wasn't. On January 2nd, just back from Hawaii, Obama showed up unannounced in Axelrod's office wearing blue jeans and a White Sox cap, having come right from the gym and expressing renewed ambivalence about undertaking the race. "Being Barack Obama isn't a bad gig," Obama said. "I don't need this to validate myself. I get plenty of validation as it is, and I can do something great from where I am. I like being with my friends. I like being able to watch a ball game, and you guys have made it very clear what the cost of this is going to be." "I know there are a lot of people who want you to do this," Axelrod replied, "but you don't have to do this." Having been acquainted with his share of presidential candidates, Axelrod knew that the ones who fared well were those who were physically compelled to be president immediately. "I think you have ambition, but not that kind of pathological drive," Axelrod went on. "I've worked with Hillary. I know she'll drive herself as hard as physically possible because she has to be president. She wants to be. She needs it. I don't sense that in you." Obama didn't really sense it either, but he rejected the notion that running for president was a task suited only to the borderline mentally ill. What he knew about himself was that, at his core, he was competitive enough to find the requisite motivation. He trusted that logic that had led him to this point, his perception of where the country was and the work that needed doing. He had come too far to turn back now. The talk with Axelrod constituted his final gut check, and although his insides remained queasy, his head was free of doubt, and in the Obama interior chain of command, the head always outranked the gut. Obama had one other thing to check. A few days later, he and Michelle secretly flew down to Nashville to have lunch with Al and Tipper Gore. Obama admired Gore immensely. He hoped that down the line he could secure the former vice president's endorsement. But he also knew that the one thing that could kill his candidacy in the crib was an unexpected entry into the race by Gore, which more than a few Democratic insiders in January 2007 still considered a live possibility. So while the two couples engaged in a general discussion about how to shield a candidate's children from the sharp glare of a presidential race, Obama asked Gore a more pointed question. "Is there any chance you'll run?" "Not a chance," Gore made clear, and Tipper was equally emphatic. Her family and her husband would not be making this race. Obama and Michelle finished up their lunch and flew back to Chicago. The next Monday, Obama said to his team, "All right, let's do it. What's next?" He formally launched his campaign 6 weeks later on February 10, 2007, on the steps of the old state capitol in Springfield, Illinois. 17,000 people packed into the town square on one of those Midwestern winter days so frigid, the high was 7 degrees, that every color seems brighter and the horizon line so sharp it could cut glass. Michelle suggested moving the event indoors so that families wouldn't risk frostbite for their kids, but the alternative venue, the Prairie Capitol Convention Center, was a sterile, hulking vault, and Axelrod was intent on creating a magical moment and capturing the pretty pictures for use in future ads. 20,000 hand warmers were secured and a heater installed in the lectern to keep Obama toasty enough to function. The speech he delivered laid out all of the themes that would carry him through 2007 and beyond. "I recognize there is a certain presumptuous in this, a certain audacity to this announcement," Obama proclaimed. "I know that I haven't spent a lot of time learning the ways of Washington, but I've been there long enough to know that the ways of Washington must change. And there are those who don't believe in talking about hope. They say, well, we want specifics. We want details. We want white papers. We want plans. We've had a lot of plans, Democrats. What we've had is a shortage of hope. And that is why this campaign can't only be about me. It must be about us. It must be about what we can do together. And it's time to turn the page." Obama's performance was nearly flawless, but the launch didn't go quite as planned. Obama's minister, Reverend Wright, had been scheduled to deliver an invocation at the announcement, but the day before, Obama's team got hold of a story that had just been published in Rolling Stone, which included a wildly inflammatory passage concerning the Reverend's oratorical style and substance. Wright takes the pulpit here one Sunday and solemnly, sonorously declares that he will recite 10 essential facts about the United States, the Rolling Stone piece said. "Fact number 1, we've got more black men in prison than there are in colleges," he intones. "Fact number 2, racism is how this country was founded and how this country is still run." Amazing. There is thumping applause. Wright has a cadence and a power that make Obama sound like John Kerry. Now the Reverend begins to preach. "We are deeply involved in the importing of drugs, the exporting of guns, and the training of professional killers. We believe in white supremacy and black inferiority and believe it more than we believe in God. We conducted radiation experiments on our own people. We care nothing about human life if the ends justify the means." The crowd hoops and amens as Wright builds to his climax. And God has got to be sick of this shit. Did he say that in church? Isn't it amazing? Right on. Axelrod and Gibbs realized immediately that they had a problem on their hands, though its severity wouldn't be apparent for some time. Now that's amazing. What Jeremiah Wright said, and President Obama had to distance himself from him, but look at where the country is today in August 2018. Axelrod and Gibbs realized immediately that they had a problem on their hands. Though its severity wouldn't be apparent for some time, Obama saw the problem too. He called his pastor and informed him that his role at the announcement was being downgraded. Wright would now lead a private prayer for Obama and his close friends before the event, away from the stage, away from the cameras. The phone call was painful for Obama. He and Michelle had been married by Wright. Wright had baptized their children, But as soon as Obama read the Rolling Stone story, he knew the decision was unavoidable. Staring at Wright's incendiary words on the page, Obama thought, this doesn't sound real good. And that is the end of chapter 4. So he really had to just ultimately denounce Reverend Wright, no matter how right he was. Well, chapter 5 is going to be interesting. It's titled The Inevitables. Okay, we'll stop there. Chapter 4 is done. I may decide late tonight to do chapter 5. Start on it since I'm off tomorrow. We'll see. Okay. It's no point in turning off this video and starting up another video to do this second reading. Reading number 2 is a little bit from Wikipedia about what most of the world knows about. I'm going to start with one paragraph, first paragraph, I think. This is information I think I need to read up on. And it is Wikipedia's definition and explanation of COINTELPRO. So COINTELPRO, the acronym for Counterintelligence Program, and I guess it existed between the years of 1956 and 1971, was a series of covert and at times illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political organizations. FBI records show that COINTELPRO resources targeted groups and individuals that the FBI deemed subversive, including the Communist Party, USA, anti-Vietnam War organizers, activists of the Civil Rights Movement or Black Power movement, as in Martin Luther King Jr., Nation of Islam and the Black Panther Party, feminist organizations, independence movements such as Puerto Rican independence groups like the Young Lords, and a variety of organizations that were part of the broader New Left. The program also targeted white supremacist groups, including the Ku Klux Klan. So it did do some good work. Nationalist groups, including Irish Republicans and Cuban exiles, were also targeted. The FBI also financed, armed, and controlled an extreme right-wing group of former Minutemen, transforming it into a group called the Secret Army Organization that targeted groups, activists, and leaders involved in the anti-war movement, using both intimidation and violent acts. The FBI has used covert operations against domestic political groups since its inception. However, covert operations under the official COINTELPRO label took place between 1956 and 1971. COINTELPRO tactics are still used to this day and have been alleged to include discrediting targets through psychological warfare, smearing individuals and groups using forged documents, and by planting false reports in the media, harassment, wrongful imprisonment, and illegal violence, including assassination. The FBI's stated motivation was protecting national security, preventing violence, and maintaining the existing social and political order. Oh, where's that? Beginning in 1969, leaders of the Black Panther Party, I have an uncle that used to be a Black Panther, were targeted by COINTELPRO and neutralized by being murdered, assassinated, imprisoned, publicly humiliated, or falsely charged with crimes. Some of the Black Panthers affected included Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, Zaid Shakur, Geronimo Pratt, Mumia Abu-Jamal, and Marshall Conway. The government was able to use their efforts by planting agents that were able to assist the government in facilitating such charges against them. Common tactics used by COINTELPRO were perjury, witness harassment, witness intimidation, and withholding evidence. I'm going to read one more paragraph because that kind of ends the definition of Wikipedia. Wikipedia's definition of COINTELPRO. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover issued directives governing COINTELPRO, ordering FBI agents to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of these movements and especially their leaders. Under Hoover, the agent in charge of COINTELPRO was William C. Sullivan. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy personally authorized some of the programs. Although Kennedy only gave written approval for limited wiretapping of Martin Luther King's phones on a trial basis for a month or so, Hoover extended the clearance, so his men were unshackled to look for evidence in any areas of King's life they deemed worthy. Recently, documents show that the FBI still engages in COINTELPRO behavior by surveilling Black Lives Matter. And then it ends there. Okay, that was pretty sad. And I plan to probably do random readings at the end of my book, at the end of Game Change. I'm going to probably select something, some kind of random read every time. Because that's what I want to do. All right, this is Shantae, the undervalued, underestimated, highly marginalized, and now diminished beautiful Black woman. Still at it. Not giving up, not giving in. God bless everybody. You take care.